When I said rough earlier, that might have been a bit of an understatement. Hey guys, here it is the next morning after the TV swap meet. I haven't fully recovered, both mentally or physically. Did a lot of driving in over a 24-hour period. I didn't get much sleep, so I'm a little foggy, but we'll try to get through this because I can't leave this stuff sitting out here. Now, when I built some TV display shelves a few weeks ago, and I asked what you guys thought of it, somebody said I need a Dumont. Now, yeah, I do have a Dumont Clifton that was off to the side, and that's a floor standing model. But now I have one. I've always wanted a tabletop Dumont, the doghouse. It's a classic. There's certain things most collectors want to have in their collections, like the RCA 621 TS, a Predicta maybe, and one of these because they're what you call iconic models because of the cabinet design. Now I don't have a spot for it on that display shelf, but I'm hoping I can put this on top of my Philco 37690, which is a radio. I don't think it's quite this deep, but it is a very substantial cabinet. I'm sure it can handle the weight. Maybe if I just put some boards under it, I can get it up there safely. I'm not prepared to pull the chassis out just yet. I am very curious to know what happened there. There should be a focus control. They are notorious for going bad. I'm also wondering, was this set restored? I don't know anything about this. Maybe we can tip it on its side and I can peek in underneath. What I do want to do is I want to get it out on display, and I want to swap out these incorrect knobs with the knobs from this part set. Curious about this too. This knob has a little handle out so you can crank it around more readily. This does not, but that could very well be an original. They made a number of revisions of this chassis. There's a 103 A, B, C, D. If you've been watching my Dumont Rumson, I think it is, restoration, that's a 103D. That has a negative power supply bolted onto the top of the chassis. Notice this does not. This is the older style. So hopefully these are both the same chassis revision, so if I need parts I can swap between them. I also very much want to test this picture tube, but also determine what type it is. I think it's the original, or at least it's been on here a long time because goo is stuck to it. But that connector has me puzzled. Yeah, see how this is all mangled? The original picture tube that would have come with this was a Dumont design, and it did not use the standard sort of snap-in ring. It had a little post that stuck out, and this would fit onto it. So I'm pretty sure this is not, you know, that would have been a 12JP4, and later they used a QP4. So we got to figure out what this is and is it any good. Or maybe figure it out if it's any good, and if it's not, I don't need to bother to figure out what it is. I'll figure if I'll find a space to pop this guy inside. That's not too bad. Oh, then the other big order of business is the Scott projection disaster. I don't think I showed you the top one I got back. I think it's all there. It's just all the joints opened up. Yeah, this is a Scott, but it's not the Scott of old with the chrome-plated radio chassis. This is a split-off division or something like that, and I don't think they even made the cabinet. They tend to fall apart. My other cabinet is also falling apart. First I want to see, is it all here? This is another bit that we found when I was rooting around trying to find all the bits to this set. I think this is the hinge that goes on the back. So since my wife has the car, I have an empty garage, so I'm thinking let's do a little triage autopsy on this thing and spread it out, remove all the chassis from this disintegrating cabinet, and to make a decision. Can it be rebuilt? Is it worth saving, or is it destined for a parts set? I'm a little out of breath. I did get the Dumont inside, and while doing so, while moving it, realized the chassis is not secure and there's stuff rattling around inside. That really bugs me. Especially a nice set like that with the back on it. One would think that it's been restored, it's all secured. Nope, chassis is just sliding around inside, and it's not that much effort to do. I've heard some tragic stories, and I've almost had a few myself where chassis fell out of cabinets while somebody was transporting it. Anyways, I was taking a closer look at the CRT. Couldn't find a designator on it, but it sure looks to me like it's a stray gun. I notice there's no ion trap magnet, meaning it could very likely be a straight gun, no ion trap, 12 JP4 kind of CRT. It's just, that's not it. Maybe they made two flavors of it, I don't know. It's a Sylvania. Originally, I imagine it would have come with the Dumont CRT. Well, let's just test it though. Regardless of what designator it is, they all run on the same voltage, so at least we can take care of that. I'll pop the knobs off too. Oh yeah, and this does have an eye tube. I imagine that clips inside the cabinet somewheres. 6 AF7, I think. Something like that. Not a pie wedge eye tube, it's two rectangular target areas. Alright, let's give this a test. By the way, these carrying handles may look like a good idea. No, in reality, it makes it far more difficult, and I wonder if that's how the dial got broken. All the weight's in that corner. When you pick it up by these handles, the whole thing just jerks over to that side, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if the tension on this clipped the side of that and knocked it off. Anyways, let's give this a try. Yeah, it's glowing. And G1 already. And G2, well, that's a very, very, very good sign. Climbing, climbing, climbing. And we have cutoff already. So yeah, the CRT is fine. Which again, I think makes it very unlikely this could possibly be original. Or is there a bit of an angle? So there's two ways you could do it if it's going to have an ion trap. Either a bent gun, which is very noticeable because this would have it wouldn't be straight, or it has a diagonal cut, like 30 degrees or something like that. It's at a bit of an angle, but not that much. But of course there's no magnet on here. Sure, it could have been taken off at some point. There's only one way to find out for sure is we'll try using it one of these days. And life test. Yeah, it's fine. If I let it warm up longer, it would probably get even stronger. So, just for that, this was a good purchase. And of course, well, the knobs. So, pop off the knobs. I'll pop out the CRT just to make this easier to store, and then I'll squirrel the chassis away somewhere. Well, I think it's all here, such as it is. When I said rough earlier, that might have been a bit of an understatement. I didn't realize that some of the wiring harnesses have been cut. We can see why the bottom is in such miserable shape. Should be some wood here holding this together. And this is severely delaminated. And you have all this weight in this corner, which is just really unsupported. Alright, so all the knobs are held on by set screws that were corroded. That was a major pain to get those off, but I got them off. However, there is this collar here with a set screw that I've loosened. I put penetrating oil on it. Can't get it off, and without that coming off, you can't get the front of the cabinet off. The hole is just a little bit too small to fit over that. Why do they do that? I have no idea, but boy, is it frustrating. So, could this be saved? What would you need to do? One, make an entire new bottom out of some 3/4 ply, using this as a template. That probably isn't too hard. That side would need to be, if not entirely rebuilt, at least the bottom 2 inches. Side in the front, I think, could be salvaged with some gluing and clamping. Likewise, the top. The front is rather warped, but again, gluing, clamping, maybe. And then this piece does indeed fit in here. Now, let's see, what is... I think there's a cross piece missing on the back, which is what this would have attached to. So notice we have all these T-nuts, but to go to what? Now, I do have my other set, which, excuse me, I do have my other set, which is in a similar condition with the cabinet, but not quite as bad. But it is all there, so I could use that as a template to fabricate missing pieces. But let's be realistic. This is a huge undertaking. I am not equipped for doing some fine cabinet work. So for now, I'm going to disassemble it, pack the chassis away, and at some point I will get both sets out and pick and choose between the two and try to make one complete set, or reevaluate whether I can make 2 complete sets. I'm not sure what condition this is in. It's not cracked, but it sure is filthy. I can't recall if I ever showed this or not, but over the years I have acquired a new old stock 3NP4 projection CRT, an entire new old stock, or very, very little, gently used protogram unit and box, and I think a new old stock power supply. So I could replace all this stuff is what I'm getting at, which is why I hesitate to completely condemn it. So when Scott made this, looks like they outsourced the cabinet. I can't see it very well on here, but they have one of these in good condition at the museum, and there's a name on it, on the front frame. And I think that may be who made the cabinet for them, or at least the front glass. The protogram stuff was made by Philips / Norelco. So what Scott actually made was that chassis and that. And I recall from when we looked at this earlier, some of this stuff is off-the-shelf parts too. I think that might be a mech tuner, and the flyback circuit in there is a conventional fly one, nothing fancy. And the circuitry under this is pretty crude, and this power supply is very straightforward as brute force. Big power transformer, a 5U4, and some filter caps. So the real magic in this is just how they got it all assembled in a flipped such a small form factor, kind of like a Predicta. It's not that they invented or did anything miraculous with the electronics, it's that more the physical construction of it. So we'll put that to the side. I'll ponder it. It could be done. It could be done. Just not by me right now. But I'm glad I was able to salvage it. The knobs. So this was a knob that I was looking for all this time. It's a big old piece of cast metal with a notch cut in it and a set screw. And behind that, I didn't realize, I believe this is fine tuning. It's a slab Bakelite with a couple screws that screw into that collar that I'm struggling to get off. So unassembled, it's something like that. I'm missing both of these from my other set. I will never find these. I find another one, I should say, so even if I rebuilt the cabinet and made 2 complete working sets. Yeah, it's 3D printing, I know. But this is a nice piece of metal. Can't 3D print that. I brought the nicer Dumont inside and just popped the back off for a closer look. It is loose, but there is still a bolt on that side. So I'm going to replace the one on here, but first I want to pull it out because I hear stuff rattling around inside. I want to see what's in there. Also, unfortunately, the tuner's messed up, which is a really common issue with these sets. It doesn't rotate the way it's supposed to. It's kind of frozen. And that knob, I had a heck of a time getting it off. They got the set screw, ended up the wood separated from the inner brass part, so that's really frozen on there. But at least with the knob off, I can pull the chassis out. From what I can see, it's complete and it's clean, but we won't know for sure until I pull it out. I carefully tipped it forward, and yeah, there should be 4 bolts. There's 1, and even that one is only finger tightened. Always check this stuff before you transport sets or tip them on their side for sure. As far as what I'm hearing rattling around inside, I'm seeing some debris. It looks like maybe there was some rodent activity in there. There's a screen mesh here, but there are definitely some openings or a critter could get inside there. So, yeah, let's get that nut out and see what we've got. Yes, sir. Rodent activity. We have some old nut husks or something, and a capacitor label, which may mean there have been some parts nibbled on underneath. That's a curious thing with it's been modified with an external speaker jack. I think it's just a parallel with the secondary of the audio output transformer. If you ever pull one of these out, be careful to disconnect the speaker, but also to pop the eye tube out of its bracket. Alright, I think we can tip it this way. Now see, this is the original CRT type. This is what I was trying to tell you with the other one. So number 1, look how much shorter it is. That's a really short 12-inch CRT. The other one comes out just slightly past the end of this. And look how bulbous that is. That is not... Normally a CRT is angled on the side. This is round. I haven't seen one of these in a while. It's a very, very distinctive look to it. And it has a goofy high voltage connector. I'm thinking this set has never been restored. Some slight tweaks, modifications way back when. And wow, this is... I've never seen these that weren't rock hard, melted, disgusting. This is actually still flexible. I think it would... It's a little crusty, a little crumbly, but it's not hardened. That's odd. So whoever had this, it came out of somebody's collection. Actually, there's a label on the back. Paul E. Seidel, if any of you know who that is or was. He kept it in good shape. And there certainly are plenty of collectors out there who have zero interest in restoring a set, it being functional or anything. It's just for the object itself. And they want one that looks nice. And he kept the cabinet clean. I'm sure it was in a controlled environment and all that. So I got a feeling that this has had no work done to it. Alright, are you ready for the reveal? Here we go. It has had some work done to it, but not much. What immediately jumped out at me is There should have been another can dome similar to this here. It looks like this one has been completely removed, and this one has been subbed out with some vitreous enamel and a terminal strip added. And so there's what was the focus control. They cut the shaft off of it. Looks like it's still wired in. Okay. Wiring looks odd. Well, it's probably just age. It's wax coated, all laced up. I suspect if I hit that with the heat gun a little bit, the wax would kind of reflow and that would look nice and normal. Some dubious work done under here. It's funny, the other Dumont I'm working on right now, same deal. Down here is all kinds of funny business going on with spliced wires tacked in parts and stuff. I don't recall there being a power resistor here, but this is an earlier revision of the chassis, so it's entirely possible that's normal. Relay's gone, the delay relay, and they just hardwired it, so there's no soft start at all. I thought there'd be a 6AL5 detector tube down here. Maybe that's it on the other side of the chassis. So that's a definite change. It's the same gimmick. Capacitor there. There should be another one down here. Well, the later revisions, the detector tube is underneath the chassis, and there's more stuff in this area. Otherwise, doesn't look too bad. Looks like maybe this capacitor blew out its side. There are a few other replacement caps here and there. That's a new cap, I'm sure. This and that black might be. So some old repairs, but nothing too extensive. Seems like an odd place for these guys. A couple caps up in there. Anyways, I thought it'd be a lot worse. Now I wonder, where the heck did this come from? Maybe when old repair was done, that was just left behind. Well, this one's falling off. Maybe there's a naked cap under here somewhere. Alright, so I'm going to vacuum out that crap and scare up a few more bolts. Let's mount this a little more securely. Then I want to put this in its place of honor for the time being and see about installing proper wood knobs on it. And I'll have to get off that stump of the old knob there. There it is in its new place of honor. As I suspected, the radio wasn't quite deep enough for the big chunky feet to sit on, so I threw some 2x4s underneath. In the future I'll make something a little more elegant if I decide to keep it up there. I also popped on the wood knobs, including the one that has the speed tuner, but alas, this thing is messed up inside. It can be fixed. It's a finicky mechanism, and probably the grease is all dried up inside. Now, being that CRT doesn't have an ion trap, it's almost guaranteed, even if it has good emissions, it's going to have a burn spot in the middle. If you go back and watch some years ago, maybe 10 years ago now, 8 years ago, I picked up a Strumper Carlson with essentially the same chassis, and I was able to power it up and get a raster, and it has a nice dark spot in the middle if you want to know what one looks like. I'll put a link in the description. Also have a Crosley 909-407. All three of those sets essentially have the same chassis, so it might be my best interest to do all three at the same time when I do them. I don't intend to keep the Motorola up here, but it doesn't weigh a whole lot, so I just tossed it up there. I pulled off those incorrect knobs. I'm going to get a better look at it. I'll do a full triage on this in a later video, maybe even do a Friday night restoration on it. It looks like the cabinet was, I don't know what happened to it, but it definitely needs to get stripped and refinished. Probably did have decals at some point. I'll have to find some reference photos. Ugh, boy, I don't know what happened to this. But it's a pretty simple cabinet. It should be a quick weekend job to strip, grain fill, tone, and clear coat. Now this is a correct knob, but it is super chalky because the plastic they used does that. I don't think it's quite tenite, but maybe it is some tenite derivative. That should be red. Take a quick attempt at cleaning it up. Sometimes just soaking this in warm soapy dish detergent will get a lot of that off. But I do have a set of gold knobs that I can pop on now. They're correct Motorola knobs. They're gold. They should be red, but it's better than what was on there. So I'll let this soak, and I'll put those on. Here's with the gold knobs. Doesn't look too shabby, but I do actually need these for the model that they're supposed to go on, which is the black Bakelite version. So these can't stay here. So I need to find the rest of these. So here it is all cleaned up, which went pretty quick when I remembered what I'd done in the past, which is to soak this in a strong cleaner, in this case Spray 9, diluted about 50% with warm water, let it soak for about half an hour, use a toothbrush, and almost all the crud came off. Then a little Novus number 2, then Novus number 1, and here we go. Tragically, I did have a complete matched nice set of these 10 years ago or so. Didn't think I'd ever have a use for them, so I sold them for probably 20 bucks. That's why I find it so hard to throw anything away or sell anything. It's eventually I tend to get burned. So that's the quest to find the little. This is always the hardest one to find because it's the smallest. The little fine tuning and the two outer knobs. Cleaned up the glass a little bit on both of these. It'll be a while before I can get to this, but boy, I'd like to see one of these work. That dial is very cool. It lights up. If you look close, if you can see it, there's the TV, 2 through 13. It's got the FM band on there. You have different cutouts. When you rotate this around, different sections light up. And you got a mode switch down here. It's a neat thing. It's a neat thing to see, and then of course there's an iTube. So someday we'll get to it. That's going to be it for now. Hope you enjoyed this a closer look at some of the sets I picked up recently at the 2023 Early Television Museum's October swap meet.